Ukrainian Member of Parliament Inna Sovsun, who joins me now live from Kiev. Thank you so much for giving us your time, Inna. Now, I came across an interview that you gave, quite an emotional interview, of your father willing to go out and defend his country. Just give me an idea of what you and your family have been going through for the past 4 days now.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thanks for listening to that. My situation is the following. Within the past 4 days of war, I had very different experiences. So my initial thoughts were taking care of my son. He was relocated to the west of Ukraine so that I could stay here and not worry about his safety, but continue doing my job as a member of parliament. My boyfriend quite expectedly joined the army because he did so before, so he got back to service. And my dad, he did take my mom to the west of Ukraine, and my thinking was that he will stay there on the west. He's 61-year-old, so I was not expecting him to be willing to join the defense in any way. But then the day after that, I got a message from my mom saying, Inna, Dad is coming back to Kiev. So I started calling him and I asked, Dad, why are you coming back? You are not very young, probably not very helpful in terms of helping. But he said, well, I'm going back to protect the capital of Ukraine, the city of Kiev. And my dad, he has the problems with his knees, so he doesn't walk very fast. It's difficult for him to run. He wouldn't be able to do that. So I said, like, you have trouble walking. He said, well, but I can crawl very well. And that was his spirit. And I'm just not saying that because this is my dad. This is actually the spirit of so many other Ukrainians who are at this point joining the forces, the army, the territorial defense units, or just volunteering, gathering humanitarian aid, helping create or make Molotov cocktails. I've seen videos of chemistry students who are saying that we don't know how to fight, but we can definitely make Molotov cocktails to blow up Russian tanks. So that is what we shall be doing. There are women who are owners of fancy restaurants saying like, okay, we don't know how to fight, but we can give you bottles that we are holding in our restaurants, which you can use to make Molotov cocktails. So at this point, everyone in Ukraine is just trying to pitch in to see what they can do in order to help save Ukraine from this disaster. And I think this level of resistance is unprecedented. I frankly speaking, I'm amazed with my own people right now. Mm-hmm. And I think that Putin did not take that level of resistance into account. And that was the major failure in the strategic planning of the whole operation on his side.
Right. One thing that we keep hearing is the resilience of Ukrainians and how the military capabilities of the army there has somewhat shocked Russia as well. Now, just moving on, your experience as a politician, taking that into account, we know that Russian officials and Ukrainian officials are due to meet any minute now to find some sort of a diplomatic solution to this war between the two sides. Do you think that anything will come out of that meeting?
Well, we'll have to wait and see. Frankly speaking, as of now, I don't really believe a word coming out of the Russian side's mouth. I don't believe a word of Putin's mouth. Every time he opens up his mouth, he is lying. So we don't really believe anything that they will say. But we definitely want peace on our land, but we shall not surrender. That is for sure. If you remember, when Putin did offer the peace talks, he said that he has two conditions. One is that the Ukrainian army surrenders. Second condition is that the meeting is taking place in Belarus, which is officially an independent state, but at this point of time, this is the state from which the Russian troops are entering to attack Kiev. This is the state from which they are launching missiles into Ukrainian cities. So it's in no way a neutral territory. So Ukrainian side did say that either of those conditions is non-acceptable to us. So the situation changed. They agreed to meet at the border with Belarus so that we can feel a bit safer for our delegation. But then also it's unconditional in terms of weapons surrendering and all, which is actually making sense because Ukrainian army is actually winning in this war. We are seeing the losses on the Russian side, and they are way, way, way bigger than the losses on the Ukrainian side. The loss of life on Ukrainian side also is there, and I'm sure Putin will have to pay for that in the future. But the losses on the Russian side reported right now are over 5,000 people. And here I just, as a politician, as a member of parliament, I just want to say thank you to Turkey for helping us in terms of weapons. Your Bayraktars are doing a great job here blowing up Russians. Thank you so much. Send us more. Greatly appreciated, truly. That is really true, helping us save the lives of the Ukrainians. But as for the talks, the only thing that we ask on these talks is just leave us alone. Just get out of our country. And the only thing we can discuss are the conditions on which your troops will be leaving Ukraine, the conditions on which we shall be returning you the prisoners of war, and the remains of those killed in this atrocious war that you launched on us.
Right.
Anything less than that will just not be accepted by Ukrainians, by the army, by the families of the deceased, of those killed by Putin. So the question is whether Russia will agree to that, whether Russia would be able to accept the very fact that they're basically losing the war against a country 5 times smaller than itself.
Okay.
So we'll have to wait and see about that.
We definitely will. Now, for the first time ever, the EU announced that it would finance the purchase of weapons to Ukraine. And a couple of days ago, we heard from the ambassador of Ukraine to the UK say that they need 3 things. One being more military assistance on the ground, more tools that they can use in their fight against Russia. And we are currently hearing from the UN of 422,000 Ukrainians have fled their homeland into neighboring countries. What do you want to happen moving forward from this point on? We're currently in day 5 of the war between Ukraine and Russia. What do you think will happen tomorrow?
So let's start with this. Indeed, many Ukrainians did leave the country. Those were mainly people taking their kids to safety. So that does make perfect sense to myself. As I said, I relocated my son. Well, he's in Ukraine, but on the west of Ukraine, where it is relatively safer. So that is there. So please do help Ukrainians who did end up abroad. We would very much appreciate that. In terms of what we expect from the West, in terms of support, well, basically 3 major things. First, as you rightly mentioned, is supply of weapons, ammunition, everything to help our soldiers fight. We do understand that there will not be NATO troops on the ground, at least for the time being, but we are willing to fight ourselves. We just ask for your help in terms of weapons and ammunition. Thing number 2, full-scale sanctions against Russia. Not just minor sanctions. We appreciate the switching off SWIFT, but we ask for full embargo, full trade embargo with Russia. Because right now the situation is actually that because of this war, oil prices are going up. And since Russia continues to sell oil to other countries, it is actually making money on the war right now. And what the world needs to understand is that every dollar, every euro that you pay to Russia right now for a barrel of oil or gas or anything else you buy from Russia is going to be used for buying weapons with which they will be killing Ukrainian children and grown-ups. So please do establish full trade embargo on Russia so that their economy is just not able to sustain this war anymore. And the third thing we are asking is help us establish a no-fly zone. Because right now, the most atrocious part of this assault on Ukraine are the airstrikes. We are living for the pre-day now under constant fear of air attacks. We do hear explosions on air all the time. We do hear air raid sirens all the time. I've seen, and this is just truly heartbreaking, kids being just shaken and they're crying and they don't understand what is happening because they suddenly have to go to the basements, to the shelters, to the underground stations, just to stay safe. So those airstrikes need to be stopped. And that is can only be done by establishing a no-fly zone over Ukraine, just hitting everything that will be flying. Ukrainian side is willing to not use anything on air, but just help us stop those atrocious air attacks that Russia is launching on Ukraine. So those 3 things, weapons, sanctions, and no-fly zone, is basically what we expect from the West right now and from all our partners, including Turkey, of course, because we are willing to fight on the ground. And you must have seen the reports that Ukrainian army is doing amazingly. And the territorial defense, where volunteers like my dad sign up for, which are over 100,000 people there now.
Right.
They're doing a great job.
We heard that very same remark from Vladimir Zelensky that his men are ready to fight. They just need military equipment from their allies. Now, the EU is warning that the conflict in Ukraine has the potential to displace more than 7 million people. And currently, we're seeing a humanitarian crisis unfold at the border. How is the Ukrainian government working with its neighboring countries to keep their people as safe as possible?
The amazing part of the Ukrainian resistance right now is that it is provided partially by the government, but actually it is hugely decentralized. So people all over Ukraine are self-organizing. There are so many help groups. There are so many people who are volunteering in order to get humanitarian help. I myself, I'm staying at the home of my friends, and there are some other people staying over here, and I just hear them coordinating humanitarian efforts from like all over Europe, saying like, okay, we have a guy here in London who says that he can send some medicines. We have some people over here who are willing to donate money. We have some doctors here who are willing to come from Switzerland, Italy, or something else, Israel. So and people are doing that themselves. They just find in different contacts and self-organizing to a very big extent. The government is doing its part of a job, but you have to realize the whole scale of the operation that needs to be supported. It's just huge. No government would be able to support this. But what Ukrainians are really good at, and probably that is what scares Putin most of all, is this level of self-organization and self-reliance on each other is actually huge. So this is actually extremely inspiring, and I think that is how we shall win.
It definitely is.
Again, the big question is how soon that will be, and that really depends on our partners and from the West and other countries.
Well, we are seeing pictures now from the Ukraine-Poland border of currently displaced Ukrainians trying to make their way into Poland to get some sort of safety resulting from the Russian aggression on their country. Thank you so much for joining us here on the program. That was Ukrainian Member of Parliament Inna Sovsun. It was a pleasure speaking to you.